Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Real Demers, where we champion the B-sides, the offbeat, and the overlooked. We've worked in and around Hollywood, so we know just how hard it is to get a movie made. This is our space to celebrate some cinematic misfits that we hope you'll enjoy as much as we do. Look, gang, Real Demers is a place for honesty. We can be open with one another, and this is a place for sharing. Sometimes we plan an episode and it doesn't work out. I saw a comedy recently which I thought was underrated, but it had some issues. I was on the fence about whether or not it would be a good film to cover. And just to be on the safe side, Andreas checked it out and he really liked the first half. Then it kind of drops off a cliff as it goes on. So we decided that a half redemption was not good enough for you and that you listeners deserve something that really gets us fired up. So Andreas, what is the core of The Real Demers? What are we trying to get to here?
We're here to celebrate movies. Now, we don't always have to love the movie we're talking about, but I think it would help if at least one of us was ecstatic about it. I'm sure there's going to be episodes where one of us will love a movie and the other one won't connect with it as much. And we did talk about and maybe explored that version of the film you referenced, which we're not going to name, but we both felt it might not be that good of a discussion because as much as you liked it, you didn't love it and weren't ready to champion it as much as we would want to champion a film on the podcast.
That's it. If we're gonna, we don't mind disagreeing. That's fine. But if it's gonna go there, you really want to make sure you're cashing in that chip on something you care about. So
yeah, we disagree a whole lot. Don't you worry, listeners. You will get disagreements.
It's constant fighting, but here it's okay. We went back to our handy dandy list, and Andreas said the magic words. Greg, do you want to talk about Brian De Palma? And listener, I do. I very much do. Oh, what better place for Real Demers to dive into De Palma's amazing career than with the anniversary of a 45-year-old controversial thriller? We'll hold the doors open for you, and you can join us on an elevator trip straight to hell as we discuss 1980s Dressed to Kill. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Bellavia, and I'm here with
Andres Anglade.
Andres, a few days ago, you asked me if Brian De Palma was my favorite director, and I get this a lot. If you know me, you know I'll go hard in the paint for this man, and I don't know if I'd say he's my number one, but he is absolutely one of my favorites and in my top 10. However, out of all the great directors I enjoy, I feel like he's the one that needs the most defending. So that's probably why I'm pretty outspoken when it comes to him.
I could see that.
He's always been underrated in my book. And as the years have gone on, I feel like his peers have kind of passed him by and stayed in the public consciousness while he hasn't. And that's why, despite the fact that he's a filmmaker's filmmaker, Noah Baumbach loves him, Quentin Tarantino, Edgar Wright, he's got Criterion releases. He's not some obscure director. Here we are, and I still feel like he was good fodder for our show. What's your relationship to De Palma's films? Are you a fan? Where are you kind of coming in here?
In college, I was a massive fan of De Palma. I tried to watch as many of his films as I could. That being said, there are a few that people consider masterpieces that I hadn't seen just because of availability at that time. But when I was in film school, what really, really excited me about De Palma is his camera work and his use of space within the frame. And honestly, just the way he can build suspense, which I know we're going to get into later. My first introduction, I think, was Scarface, which I think people forget how amazing of a film it actually is. Anytime you watch that film, just looking at the story structure, the amazing cinematography. I mean, I obsessively watched that film just to study the camera work and how he really brought us into that world. I'm ready to do a whole episode on Scarface if you want to.
Okay, sold. Guys, we're transitioning mid-episode. I think that's the danger of De Palma. I feel like he could make several appearances easily.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say Scarface needs to be defended, but it almost needs to be defended just because people only know it as like that pop culture reference, right? They don't really talk about it as a film on its own. So from Scarface, tracked down a few of his other films. And again, while I was in film school, I just really, really took to the way he used the camera and framing. And I tried to emulate that in my films and failed miserably, but it's always fun to try. What about you? What was your first introduction to him?
I think it was Carrie. I went through a big Stephen King phase and just knew it was out there. And also my dad and I would talk horror movies. And he told me that there's this famous one that ends with her like wasting an entire prom after they did her wrong. That's the earliest memory there. And then remember a friend renting Carlito's Way and watching that, saw Snake Eyes in the theater. Like I knew Scarface was out there. But college is kind of where everything changed. And just for those of you that don't know, Andreas and I both went to university on Long Island. And here's where I'm going to share my dark, shameful secret with you. So I was in a horror movie appreciation class taught by Ruth Pergozzi, RIP, wonderful professor. And
she was great.
I worked with her for a little bit. She ran the F. Scott Fitzgerald Society, and I was her assistant, and she was fantastic. So I saw the course curriculum, and Dress to Kill was on it. And I had seen on cable in a promotion, it was either Cinemax or Showtime, they show part of the elevator scene. And I was like, oh my, this movie looks amazing. And we'll get there, but this movie looks amazing. So even before the class, I went out and I blind bought a copy from Best Buy because I'm like, I'm going to love this thing. And I did not love it. I couldn't get into this movie at all, which we're going to get into in a second. And we'll get into the whys. I talked Professor Pergozzi out of showing this movie to the class.
Wow.
So that's my because
damn,
they're gonna laugh at. I know.
Using that small amount of power. This is the real Greg, by the way, listeners. This is what he does off mic. I'm just kidding.
What kind of turned the tides was I caught Body Double, and I ended up on its wavelength. I was so young and dumb in my late teens. I didn't realize how much fun he has. And I took everything at face value. And as a face value, this is so contrived. And like, I didn't like, oh, he's just ripping off Hitchcock and everything. And like, it just didn't hit for me. After Body Double, and I kind of was now in on the joke. Oh, he's playing around with the audience. Duh, of course. I can feel people slap on their foreheads at home. That was the key that unlocked everything. And then going back and rewatching stuff that I hadn't even been as hot as before, I totally flipped the script. So yes, I might have cost a film class the opportunity to see this, but I'm hoping on this episode of Real Demers, I get real redemption for making a mistake so many years ago.
Well, now we need to know what movie took its place.
You know, I was racking my brain for that. I think it wasn't 1-to-1. It wasn't like we're losing a movie in the 80s. Was
it Jason in Space or something like that?
Oh, that one in the theater. I think we got Cat People on, the original Cat.
Oh, nice. Yeah. To offer a little bit of a dark secret, I still haven't seen Body Double, so I'll need to watch that.
Listeners, 5 episodes, 6 in the future. I'm sure we'll cross paths. And I got a whole thing about that. But long story short, as a young man, I did not get how formally playful he is, and that is so important to his filmography. And yes, like I could take into account, oh, those are cool shots, or oh, the score, but like putting it all together is a complete piece. And we are certainly going to get into that today. I was not the right audience, but now I am. And also, here's the thing. I made a mistake then. I shouldn't have had it taken off the course curriculum, but I don't think the class would have liked it. Movies with long stretches that required patience, which this film does, because it's a lot of setup. I don't think they would have dug it. So in that regard, I wasn't wrong, but we should have at least had the chance to watch it and discuss it and kind of process it. De Palma's had a ton of like ebbs and flows in his career. He did early comedies. He kind of fell into like the Hitchcock stage. He had a very successful period in the 80s. In the 90s, you know, he directed the original Mission Impossible. Nowadays, he's having trouble getting films financed. It's been high highs and low lows. At this point, he was, you know, a hot director in demand, and he was trying to get several projects off the ground, one of which was he threw his hat in the ring for a hot property, Cruising. Now, Cruising could be its own episode by itself, but that film profiled a cop going undercover kind of into like the gay underworld. And interesting idea in the early 80s. How much that kind of did or did not succeed, that's a story for another podcast, but he didn't get it. With that story on his mind, he went back and tried to make his own version of like what a cruising type scenario would be. And he wrote this, and I believe it was $1 million script that he came up with. Andres, do you kind of want to get into it? What is the story about?
And we should say, like Greg had said, he's seen this before. I had not. So this was totally new to me. I had sort of known a little bit about some of its plot, but not the entire thing, to the point where I was even surprised by some of the actors that popped up in this. So I'm just going to go through it. It might be a little bit longer of a plot description. So the film actually opens on a steamy bathroom with a man standing at the sink while shaving his face. As the camera pushes in, a woman, Kate, played by Angie Dickinson, is naked in the shower, and she's feeling herself up as she watches the man shave. The scene gets more sensual as her caressing builds. Then suddenly she's grabbed from behind and her mouth is covered, and Kate screams. So off that screen, we cut to a normal bedroom where a man is having intercourse with Kate. It's missionary style. He's on top, just pounding away, and it's obvious she's not enjoying herself at all. It's jarring, and to me, it was a bit confusing because it's revealed that the bathroom scene was more her internal fantasy, and she was initially enjoying her lovemaking before her husband became too rough. Is that how you interpreted it?
I envisioned it that she was into it, but he's too vanilla. And as opposed to maybe taking it to another level, he's just done and she's left unsatisfied. So she has a very sensual dream that there's a level of danger attached. Here she is in the shower. She sees her husband. She has a fantasy that there's another man in the shower with her, the sense of danger. And then it cuts immediately into her having intercourse with the husband, and it's unsatisfying. She is not satisfied by what's in her life.
For me, there was this, and when I said it was a little confusing, there was a split moment where I couldn't tell if the man who had grabbed her from behind was the same man who was shaving. That was a little confusing for me. And then when you cut to the husband having sex with her, we don't see his face. So I wasn't sure what was happening there. But all that gets sort of revealed when she goes to her therapist's office, where we meet Dr. Elliot, played by Michael Caine. And in her session, Kate reveals that her husband is not good in bed. She wants some reassurance of her attractiveness, so she asks her therapist if he finds her attractive. He says yes. And then she asks if he would want to sleep with her. He says yes again. Then she asks why he hasn't. And he says because he loves his wife and doesn't think it's worth jeopardizing his marriage over. And it's important to know that this exchange it's not played flirty. It's not played sensually. It's very matter of fact. So then we're in the museum where Kate has a sort of cat and mouse chase with an attractive stranger. He ends up luring her into a taxi outside the museum, and she doesn't resist. Kate drops one of her gloves, and as she gets in the taxi, we get one of De Palma's signature split diopter shots showing someone's hand picking up the glove outside. Back in the taxi, Kate and the stranger go at it while the cabbie tries to watch. The cab pulls up to a building, and Kate enters the building with the stranger, and it dissolves from daylight to night. Kate checks the time and then gets dressed. She remembers she left her panties in the cab and smiles, rekindling that feeling of being desired and living in the moment. She's still cheating on her husband, but she seems happy in this moment as compared to being so unsatisfied in the beginning of the movie. So she decides to leave the man a note. She writes a nice note, but then sees a piece of paper tucked away in his desk drawer, and it's a health notice that tells us the stranger has contracted venereal diseases, syphilis and gonorrhea.
Very tastefully, you see all in all caps, "You have contracted a venereal disease." So nothing subtle about the message.
Not subtle at all. You know, Kate, of course, freaks out and runs out of the apartment. And at the elevator, we reveal someone watching her from the stairwell. As the elevator is going down to the ground floor, she realizes she left her wedding ring on the nightstand. So she goes back up to the 7th floor. She's attacked by a blonde woman. As she's attacked, we meet Nancy Allen, plays Liz. She sees the murder and picks up the bloody razor. Dr. Elliot goes to the police station. Liz is there looking at murder suspects, and the main detective, played by Dennis Franz, of course. Is this his film debut? Do you know?
No, I'm pretty sure he's in The Fury, but not like this. Also, I think he's playing a cop. I think he's one of the cops, but like he's not, like he's given a chance to really shine here.
Yeah, he has a couple of good lines. We'll get to that later. The detective tries to get Dr. Elliot to reveal patient information, which a therapist isn't going to do. And the detective also lets Liz know that she's a main suspect. Ultimately, what it comes down to is that Liz and Pete, Kate's son, end up working together to try to find the killer.
While the killer is after her, they want to get rid of the witness.
Ultimately, Pete realizes that the killer is one of Dr. Elliot's patients. So one of the photos he captures is of the killer leaving Dr. Elliot's office. The only way they can get the information for the killer is for Liz to break into Dr. Elliot's office. The best plan Liz can come up with to do that is to seduce the doctor as a distraction and then look into his appointment book. And as she does that, it's revealed that Dr. Elliot is actually the killer, dressing up as a woman. Liz is attacked in the office, but then she's saved by a blonde police officer who had been following her for her safety.
So the fake out is some of the times where we've seen a blonde woman, it's the killer. Some of the time where we've seen the blonde woman, it's the police woman. That's the reveal.
Right.
After that, we get a Psycho-esque explanation of what we've been watching. Literally, a doctor comes in and explains it. Then Liz explains it to Peter. So we get 2 explanation scenes back to back before our good doctor escapes custody, and there's one final scare at the end. Or is there?
Yeah, I wrote down fucking De Palma fake out because he does that a lot.
Okay, so I definitely want to hear your first thoughts just since I've had to sit with it a few times, I'll just say, I did not like this the first time I saw it. Number one,
Hmm.
because I had seen the preview with the elevator, I knew that was coming. So that's basically the first 35 minutes of the movie is following her as she's kind of going along the museum and everything. So I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Let's get to it. Let's go. I just didn't have the patience that I should have had. So that spoiler didn't help me. I was convinced it was Michael Caine the entire time. None of I don't even know why I was so gung ho on it. Like the movie does actually a pretty good job of trying to throw you off his trail. I'm like, I don't care what it is. He is the killer. They will reveal that somehow. And then that was it. So there was no surprise at the ending. I don't even know why I was so stubborn about that, but like I just was not along for that part of the ride. And the fact the final scare is a De Palma fake, it's a dream sequence. He's
Yeah.
literally using the Carrie ending. I was like, fuck this. Like, come on, you're gonna do that again. None of that bothers me anymore. That first viewing, it just bounced off of me. And now I appreciate the ride for what it is. But if this movie ever, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I get it. I was there. I have switched over the years. So coming in cold, did you know any of that in advance? Like, how much of the story were you familiar with? How much was new? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So coming into it, the only thing I really knew about it was that someone dressed up like a woman. I didn't know what extent or what any of the twists were. That being said, when I was watching the scene of Kate leaving the apartment and getting in the elevator, I was watching this on a streaming service and I had to hit pause at one point. And this particular streaming service shows you the actors in the scene above the scroll bar. And it flat out showed Michael Caine. And I was like, I think this is a spoiler. And I had texted you. I said,
Yeah.
I think this streaming service, I'm not gonna say which one, just told me who the killer is. I'm with you. That didn't bother me. It already being spoiled.
Were you surprised she got killed?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seemed like, oh, she's the character we're gonna follow. I mean, it's very Psycho-esque, right? That's what they
Oh,
did in Psycho. It's an homage. I mean, there's no getting around that. It's an homage to Psycho and basically did the same thing.
and let's get into it. I mean, I think De Palma, he's accused of ripping people off. I think he would say they're, to your point, homages. And I think there's a big difference there. It's whether or not you bring your own flair. I think he does. There's two dangerous showers, Psycho.
Mhm.
There's a flip where you kill off the protagonist, Psycho, and there's literally a doctor explaining what happens at the end about the patient. So it's
Yeah.
like, it couldn't be any clearer. I will say what he adds to that is the Keith Gordon character, that's him. He was a very tech-based kid. He liked making stuff, he was very handsy and having inventions and stuff. And he followed his father to catch him cheating. So that level of
Oh.
like detective work,
I didn't know that part. I knew, like, I saw an interview where he says that the Pete character is based off of him. I didn't know the cheating part.
he
Wow.
went in and I think he pulled a knife on him and he went through where the father was until he found where the mistress was. I think he's on the third. As much as you're like, oh, he's just doing a spin on Psycho. Sure, there are elements there, but it's not like he's not bringing his own personality to it. Once again, glass half full, glass half empty. The glass half empty part of me is like, ugh, like eye rolling. He's just ripping off Psycho. The glass half full of me is like, what is he bringing to it to make it different? So, but I'm sorry again. But so your first experience, what did you think? Because again, I did not like this film. I came around on it. What is your initial reaction to this?
I didn't like it at all. No, I'm kidding. Okay. No, I liked it. I'll be honest though, there was a moment where I was concerned because we will get into it, but the trans element is problematic. We can get into it now if you want, but that was the only part of me that felt I wouldn't like this film as much. And even the fake out in the end didn't bother me. I know I wrote fucking De Palma fake out, but it worked. It was fun. But I think, there was concern of, wow, yeah, I could see people not liking this film.
Well, again, okay, so that's a good point, and that's perfectly valid. And I think this is going to be a big part of this discussion, and just to kind of like, this is the elephant in the room, so let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
In reading about De Palma and looking at interviews and kind of like his other stuff, this is not a defense. I'm trying to come at it from where he's coming at, like the film. I don't think he views this as anti-trans. I think to him, that character is just another tool in the toolbox. I think that's what characters in a lot of his films are. Not all of them. We can talk about maybe some outliers. In something like this, and something like Body Double, he cares about the emotion you're feeling. He cares about the ride. He cares about the experience. And even in interviews, he says it's up to the actors to kind of ground you. So it's not that he doesn't care about that, but that's up to the actor to kind of like attach to the story. I think to him, he enjoys the Jekyll and Hyde aspect of somebody that presents like, oh, I'm this respectable doctor. I can also be this extremely dangerous person. I don't think De Palma himself thinks, oh, all trans people are like this. But the problem is there's nothing to offset it against, especially
Yeah.
45 years ago. So there's
Yeah.
no trans characters you get to know. It's only presented as the other and the dangerous other. So that reading of the film, it being problematic, 100%. Nobody's arguing that. I just don't think he views it that way. I just think it's a fun thing to hang a suspense piece on, is somebody that I can hide in plain sight. Sometimes he's
Yeah.
Michael Caine, sometimes he's the Bobby personality that's a little bit more dangerous. I would say that in the same way that Sisters, I don't think Sisters is a clinical examination of the psyche between two sisters. I think it was, here's these people with the situation that I can turn into an entertaining thriller. So again, that's not a defense. It'd be different if I honestly thought he was coming in and trying to villainize the trans community. I, as a cis, white, straight, middle-aged man, don't feel that, but understand how other people could.
I 100% agree. I think, you could look at this and say it is transphobic. I think you can also look at this and see at the time it was made, trans people weren't in the media as much. And you can see the damage this would have done to the overall mainstream public in terms of how they saw trans people.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't dream of arguing otherwise.
I did read an article in The Guardian by Scott Tobias, and he wrote, "It's been called a high-tone slasher film, an expression of leering misogyny, and more recently, a prime example of on-screen transphobia. For De Palma fans, it's the most problematic fave in a career full of them, a provocative, both deliberate and accidental, reflecting and challenging the cultural norms at the time. To watch it is to exist in a dual state of attraction and repulsion, which is completely apropos for a film of relentless doubling centered on characters who are at war with themselves."
Very well put. I wonder what Brian De Palma's Cruising would have looked like. I'm, again, sure it would have been interesting flick. I'll say this. I think Cruising is a compelling film. I don't necessarily think Cruising succeeds. Have you seen Cruising?
I have not.
Okay.
And it's William Friedkin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like Al Pacino, and there's a lot of like nooks and crannies in there worth a discussion. Maybe worth a future episode. We'd have a conversation off mic. I will say this though. If you view Dress to Kill as problematic and offensive, that's 100% valid. And I think it's easy to post like hit pieces on film. I've seen writers that I like write glowing reviews of deep cuts they like, and they barely get any engagement. Or you can write the top 10 worst movies of the 90s.
Yeah.
That gets a whole bunch of clicks. That's where it's at. With that said, I don't think being upset with this movie or bothered with this movie, that makes 100% sense. I do not think you're inflating anything. I think there's a lot to kind of grapple with here. With that out of the way, I find Cruising way more offensive. I'm not even saying don't watch it. I mean, I think there's a lot of pros in there. And even if it's a movie that you don't end up liking, I think there's a lot to discuss and kind of process in there. But I find that much more of a damning account of the gay community than I do find this of the trans community. Maybe they're both damned. Maybe you don't enjoy either one of them, but just holding them up against each other. This one to me, and again, I know I'm in a certain place in my life where you can disagree with me on this. I view the Dr. Elliot character / Bobby as kind of this one-off. In Cruising, I don't think it's got a lot of nice things to say about the community, of the world he enters. And I find that way more problematic. But that's me.
I can't comment on Cruising because I haven't seen it, but I get what you're saying in terms of Bobby / Dr. Elliot being a one-off. Because like you said, we don't have another trans character that's introduced. And I feel like if this were to be made today, I don't think it would be because of the problems that we're discussing right now. But if it were, introducing a trans character that wasn't the killer would be the way to go.
I would love to see it. Honestly, I would love to see a director tackle this now and try and update the sensibilities. Because again, it's most of the movie is just technical filmmaking and suspense, whatever. It's just if you can just clean up like a little bit of the script and kind of some character work, an experiment I'd love to see someone do that's not myself or another middle-aged white guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody else can tackle it. This was a box office hit and a critical darling. It did very well for itself. But women's groups were coming out against it for misogyny. And I think it's interesting what happens to the Kate character, because here you have a woman that's trying to fulfill like her sexual desires, and what happens to her? She's probably given a venereal disease and then she's instantly murdered. So it's almost like this puritanical, moralistic, how dare you go outside your marriage? But also, again, I don't think De Palma is interested in that. I don't think Brian De Palma is judging her. I just think he thinks that's a fun thing to generate suspense, because with her discovery and trying to go back up to the room to get her wedding ring, That's the distraction. So you're not paying attention when she's about to be murdered a second later.
I did have a little bit of a negative reaction to that in terms of the venereal disease reveal.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt too much. I actually laughed out loud because it's just like, oh, wow. And this on top of it. You know, this woman's already dealing with enough psychologically in her head of being repressed and then acting out this fantasy, and she's on such a high. And I get you need to motivate her to get out quickly and then realize, oh shit, I forgot my ring. I got to go back upstairs. But I think it still could have worked without the reveal of the venereal diseases. You know, she could have been still on that high going down the elevator and then reveal, oh, I need my ring, so let me go back up. And maybe she's in a seductive mood or something, and then she gets killed. Now, in terms of a woman acting out these fantasies suddenly getting killed and women's groups going after, I get it, but then you can also look at the Liz character, right? She's a sex worker and she doesn't hide it. She's a strong character.
I would agree. I think the movie never judges Liz for her profession. Dennis Franz is giving her shit constantly, but he's a prick.
Well, and that's an element of reality. There are people who are going to judge.
I don't think you're supposed to see her through Dennis Franz's eyes.
Right.
Like he's comic relief, and also he's antagonistic towards her. And I think you're supposed to sympathize with Liz in those scenes. But that's what I'm saying. I think De Palma's the puppet master. I don't view him thinking like, I'm judging this person, but I'm not judging. I think it's just they're pieces on the board. Now,
sorry to interrupt. To be fair, yes, I agree with you. I don't think he's judging. I think story-wise, he needed to have that element to motivate her to get the hell out of the apartment. But to me, looking at it, it gives it a little bit of judgment whether he meant it or not.
Oh, I agree. And also, to your point, I rolled my eyes the first time I saw it. Yeah. Come on. I think if there's a through line to this episode, it's my fuck off reaction turned into a fuck yeah reaction over time. But like, no, it is over the top. The whole movie's over the top. So trying to meet it, like, I think I was able to meet it halfway. Whereas the first time I couldn't find it. I just couldn't get to it. And I was like, oh, now she's got a veneer. Now I find that funny. I think it's heightened. It's this heightened reality. And I don't mean that to sound like terrible, but clearly we're dealing with operatic like stuff here. And I think that lands, but if you take it at face value, of course it's over the top. Look at the afternoon this woman's having.
Yeah.
De Palma loves the buildup. You know, Carrie, he doesn't just dump blood on her. You get the whole buildup. You get the suspense of when is it going to fall? When is it going to fall? What happens when it falls? Here, that's a lot of this film. And I think enjoying it is enjoying that the lovely agonizing suspense of what's about to happen next, both in terms of like murder scenes, but even just like the museum. There's a scene where she goes to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and she's just there to be there. And she kind of looks around and she sees a young couple kind of being flirtatious. She sees a family like dealing with a kid. So it's like, these are things that's probably on her mind too, as a family woman. And then this handsome guy sits down beside her and you can see the wheels start to turn of, is this going to turn into anything?
Yeah. There's also a great moment where she sees another woman staring at a painting and a guy comes and tries to hit on her. And she sort of, has an internal chuckle about it.
Yep.
And then almost the exact same thing happens to her, but in silence. And that's what's great about that scene, is that it's completely silent.
And it goes back and forth for like close to 10 minutes. Yeah. And I think that's great. And as a young man, I didn't have the patience for that. Again, I just wanted to hustle her up to get to that elevator to whatever. It's investing you in her marital drama just so it can drop an anvil on you 5 minutes later with she's not long for this world. It's a bait and switch, but it's a lovely bait and switch. And also it's a fantastically shot bait and switch. And it's a fantastically scored bait and switch. So it's not just the events that we're saying just happen. De Palma's putting his full weight on making this look like absolutely fantastic.
It's an amazing scene. We'll probably talk about it a little bit more as we get into categories.
I really enjoy Angie Dickinson. I think Michael Caine does a good job with the misdirect, because he's playing the killer, but for a lot of the movie, when you don't know that's coming, it seems like he's trying to track down a deranged patient instead. And so there's like this concern here, but really he's just trying to cover his own ass because he's the one that's been up to something. I think Nancy Allen's really.
But does he recognize that?
I think he knows he's Bobby, but I think they're two different personalities.
Really? I think the complete opposite, especially with the scene where he goes to see the other doctor, because he's so dismissive. He's just like, I gotta go. I don't have time, but I need to speak to Bobby.
I don't think there's a way to know, because what would their session look like?
No, that's a good point. I had that thought after watching the movie. I was like, well, how does he know Bobby, and how can he have a session with him?
At one point, Bobby leaves a message for Dr. Elliot. That's one of the ways the movie tries to throw you off.
And it doesn't sound like Michael Caine.
That's actually William Finley, who was the longtime friend of Brian De Palma. They knew each other forever. So I like that they were able to get in as that character. I don't know why I was so like bent out of shape as a young man. The movie, between the Bobby voice, the policewoman, showing the policewoman, there's literally a split screen at one point of the policewoman with binoculars up to their face, so you can't quite make out with their features, watching the Liz character's house while Dr. Elliott's in a completely different location. I think the movie does a pretty good job of trying to cover its tracks of you not knowing that it's them.
No. I think it does do that, but for me, it's more whether it's showing Dr. Elliott knew of his other personality or not.
Also, I could be wrong. Where I got tripped up on was I don't know how if he honestly viewed the Bobby personality as somebody separate. I just don't know what that looks like at that point. But I could be wrong. It does not spell it out. The movie is not sensitive enough to even really dive into that. So they're being used as this kind of like monstrous character. I'm not sure.
I think for De Palma, he doesn't care.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, that's not the point of this. The point of this is I want that twist in the end.
Yes. No, I agree with you 100%. So this movie did well, but not everybody liked it. And in fact, it may have been up for a Razzie or two in the inaugural Razzies. Do you want to guess what category or categories it might have been up for nominations?
I mean, I'm guessing worst picture.
Actually, no.
Oh.
You're close.
Okay. Maybe worst director. I could see people not digging De Palma at this point.
Worst director.
Okay. Maybe, I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe Michael Caine?
Worst actor, Michael Caine.
Wow. That's all I got. Were there more?
One more.
It's not Pete, is it? The son?
Thankfully, no. Worst actress, Nancy Allen.
What? No. Worst actress?
Worst director? What?
And worst director?
This is the worst director? We must be having an amazing year if this is the worst director. Now, it didn't win any of these. And trust me, look, there were some turkeys in there. It's not like, I'm not going to totally defend the Razzies, but like, this is crazy stuff.
Wow. Worst director, worst actor, and worst actress.
Yep.
But now worst picture. Now I want to look at what the worst pictures were. We should start doing some Razzie redemption episodes. I think we might need to start doing that.
That's a good idea. We'll start right here. I think this is a good movie that's problematic. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And like how much you can deal with it being problematic, that's totally up to you. And if anything we're saying here is like, wow, I don't think I'd enjoy that, don't watch it. That's fine.
Agreed. I think if someone were to tell me I don't like this movie because it's transphobic, I can't argue against that.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But there's good movies that are unproblematic. There's good movies that are problematic. Yeah. There's bad movies that are problematic, and there's bad movies that are perfectly sweet and saccharine, and they don't do anything wrong. It's a wide spectrum. So just, I think, why Dress to Kill? Why this episode when it's something that's in the Criterion Collection? When there's something that's championed by hardcore, well-publicized filmmakers, is because of this conversation we're having right now. I think it's tainted goods, whatever you call it. Now, I think if you look at any movie that's 45 years old, it's probably going to carry some kind of baggage with it from that time period. But I don't think you're crazy to call this transphobic. I think that's a fair conversation. Yeah. I don't think you're pulling that out of thin air as a criticism of this film. With that said, I don't think that's the spirit it was intended with, and that's how I personally engage with it. And if you just want to see De Palma, the virtuoso, kind of just having a ton of fun, I think this movie is packed with just like things that he's known for, that it's held in a high regard. Before we jump into categories, I wanted to call out one other thing. So this movie has a pretty famous poster. It's behind me on my screen. If you look it up, Dress to Kill poster. That was courtesy of Francis Delia. Delia worked as a photographer for Hustler magazine. He was a photographer / filmmaker. He, along with Steven Savadian and writer Jerry Stahl, opened a art design company that created posters for The Fog, this film, The Exterminator, and Escape from New York. All very eye-catching stuff.
Nice.
And he ended up directing a adult film called Night Dreams, which involves somebody dressed up like a box of cream of wheat.
Okay.
It's very memorable.
You've seen this, haven't you?
I've seen the cream of wheat scene. I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen that. But you telling me there's a porn film with a guy dressed up like a box of cream of wheat? Yes, I'm going to track that down. He also did a more acceptable thriller, actually streaming on Tubi right now, entitled Freeway. Not the one with Reese Witherspoon.
Okay.
But pretty banging for a B movie and very stylish. So, and also he did a whole bunch of music videos. Look him up on Wikipedia. Fascinating cat who's connected to this film, had a very interesting career, but also responsible for this very cool poster over my shoulder.
Oh, I love it. Good bit of info. That's awesome.
Welcome to our categories. This is the part of our show where we highlight some of our favorite moments and performances. So, what to you is the heart of the film?
It's consequences of sexual repression, but I'd also say that theme itself is explored through duality of identity. And
No
there's
notes?
also there's also sorry, what was that?
I said no notes.
But there's also a lot of various degrees of voyeurism explored, you know, starting with Kate watching her husband through the shower glass, and then the cabbie watching Kate, and the stranger having some fun in the back seat. And then there's obviously way more, you know, with the son watching and the cop watching. There's a lot of that too. But I think consequences of sexual repression is the biggest one.
I honestly don't mean this as a cop out. I'd say the heart of the film for me, Brian De Palma having a good time and wanting the viewer to have a good time along with them. I think that's it. Because again, everything you said is on target, but I think he thinks of scenarios that are fun and then populates them with people and then just wants to have it play out. And that's the ride. And I think that's there. Also, if you want to see something that's kind of this De Palma riffing on his own obsessions, that's kind of problematic, but nothing on this level, that's where I like Body Double. Body Double's almost this without the guilt. Maybe some guilt. We'll get into that. But I think
I need to watch it.
They occupy similar space, but that one I don't feel like we need to throw as many caveats on when we get. But like maybe that's my pitch for a future episode. Okay, favorite scene.
For me, it's the train sequence.
Ooh, good one.
So it's right after Liz sees the killer standing outside of her apartment. She runs back down into the station. It honestly was a scene that I forgot I was watching a movie because I was so into the suspense of it. De Palma is a master of the camera and using different shots to build up specific moments of suspense. There's a moment when she gets on the train and tells a cop what's going on. And they both look one way and see nothing, but in the background of the scene, you see the killer getting on the train behind them. Then they both turn to the other side, and behind them, the punks that were bothering her get on the train, and she tells the cop she was almost attacked. So you have these two elements of danger that they didn't see get on the train. It's just awesome. I love it. I love it. Again, I love his use of the camera and just using the entire frame. I love it so much.
Okay, that's a great one. Where once I was bored and impatient, I am now an older man and I've changed my ways. But I'd say the museum to the hookup in the cab, to the room where she finds out that she may or may not have venereal disease, to the elevator. And that's like
8 scenes.
But that's like 15. I mean, if I have to narrow that down, the elevator, and he even says that's the best kill of his career.
I mean, it's good. It's good. I almost had the museum scene.
That's where it's like, even if this movie isn't your cup of tea, I get it. To have the audience in the palm of his hand for 15, however long that clocks in at, that's awesome. And then to end with like, it doesn't just end, it ends on like a punchline of here's her murder, and now we're handing the baton off to this new character, and it completely spins the movie in a different direction for the rest of the time. So I guess if I have to narrow it down, I'll say the elevator, but the lead up takes forever, but in a good way. Whereas Once Upon a Time, I'd been bored by it.
And not any dialogue is uttered through most of that. Maybe one or two lines. I think the only time she speaks is when she approaches him in the cab, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then on the elevator, a mom and daughter get on, which you also pointed out. And the daughter's like giving her the stink eye just for no reason, which is just adds to her guilt. Yeah. And the mother tells the daughter not to stare. But that's it for like 15 minutes.
Angie Dickinson, how? No, she wasn't nominated for a Razzie, right?
No.
Okay. I was about to say. Ugh.
Okay, well, MVP.
Greg, it's a tie for me.
Ooh, the rare tie.
I initially was going to say Nancy Allen as Liz Blake, which I'll say again, I can't believe she was nominated for a Razzie. But I rewatched a few scenes to prep for the pod, and one of them was the museum cat and mouse chase. Mm-hmm. And without uttering one word of dialogue, Angie Dickinson expresses so much in that scene. She starts in happy wonder, right? As she's watching all these other patrons of the museum. Then when the guy sits down next to her, she starts flirtatious, then disappointed that he seemingly ignores her. Then she wants to confront him and chases after him, but then pulls back once she encounters him. Then she's a little revulsed at him when he grabs her while wearing her own glove. But then she's also disappointed in herself outside for maybe messing it up. and then she approaches him in the cab. So much is conveyed through her face alone. And to me, it's a masterclass in acting that should be studied. And then Nancy Allen is phenomenal as Liz, just an effortless performance. The true amazing performances are those that you forget you're watching actors, and both Angie Dickinson and Nancy Allen give us that. They're awesome.
Quick sidebar on Nancy Allen. So I wish they were in more stuff. I mean, like, look,
Yeah,
like not like they haven't had a great career. Their work with De Palma, it's great. RoboCop, three
RoboCop.
RoboCop movies,
Yeah.
two of them were good. Can't all be winners. That's all right. Did you ever see a movie called The Philadelphia Experiment from the 80s?
Oh, I feel like I may have, but I don't remember it.
That was on HBO all the time. And as a little kid, I thought if it was on cable a lot, that must mean it's good. Just not the case at all.
No, that's sound kid logic.
But she's in that one, so I like her. I guess in the recent years, she's turned her time over to supporting cancer patients and their families.
Oh,
she
nice.
That's like their calling. So it's like,
Yeah.
I just hope she's happy doing whatever she is. I think she's 100% charming here. That Razzie thing's crazy.
It's insane. Insane.
She's great. Also, she's a prostitute, but there's like a running gag where she's really into like investing. She's always getting like investing advice, and like she buys a painting and like one day this might be worth $1 million. There's this whole like little like interior world that she's up to that they don't even like sketch out that much, but you just kind of get it. She's great.
And she's also, sorry to interrupt, she's also just she's not ashamed of who she is. She's very confident in who she is. That only helps with how she handles herself in the film to try and track down the killer.
She's great. I mean, she was with De Palma, so also like good use of like using your partner in the movie. Like sometimes the nepotism, whatever you call that, like doesn't work out. I think she's great here.
Yeah.
But I think you touched on it before. I have to give it to Angie Dickinson though. One, this movie wouldn't work if the bait and switch didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think the bait and switch wouldn't work if she wasn't great. She gets to play motherly. Like I like her scene with Keith Gordon. She gets to play the scene off of Michael Caine. She gets the museum scene. She gets murdered spectacularly. I just in a movie with a lot of good stuff happening, it's easy to kind of forget about her as the movie goes on because she's not in most of it. She's the anchor. I think she does fantastic.
Agreed. That's why it's a tie for me. I can't decide.
How Oedipal is it that Liz ends up like, it's like, what is the Liz Peter relationship?
You know, I really appreciated the way they played their relationship because it wasn't him trying to get with her or her constantly flirting and seducing him. They were very matter of fact in this is what needs to be done. This is the plan. This is what's going on. Let's try to find this killer.
Well, they're also like buddies.
Yeah.
Like she's putting her arm around him. Like at one point he's like, my dad's out of town. Do you want to stay over? And she's like, that'd be a nice vacation for me. It's like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
I mean, where you think it's going to go, especially as a man, you think that's going to lead to something, but it doesn't. I mean, it leads to a great scene.
Again, to De Palma, he's moving the pieces on the board. He needs to get her over to the place so that they can get the dream sequence at the end. How much sense that makes, but like it's there. Okay. What would you say is the underrated element?
This was a little tough. I don't know if this is a great underrated element, but for me, it's the use of mirrors and reflections to hammer in on the theme of duality. Plus, the film almost being a reflection itself, starting with a shower scene and a blonde woman screaming, moaning in bed, and then ending with a shower scene and a blonde woman screaming in bed. Maybe that's reading too much into it. I don't know.
I do not. Nope. I don't think you're off on there. I'd say Keith Gordon. I think being a teenager, sometimes you can come off a very smart teenager. You can come off as annoying or too precocious or whatever. Also, it's easy to get overshadowed by like much bigger stars in the movie than him. I think he plays it well. Like I'm with him on his quest to kind of catch the killer. I like the detective work and the science fair type gadgets he puts together in a movie with women showering, people getting murdered, chases. That stuff could be like the boring stuff. I'm still into it. I think he helps sell those portions of the film as well.
That's a great answer. We didn't really delve into his character too much, and I agree. He has a great presence on screen, and like you said, he isn't annoying.
He's really good in Christine too. He didn't have like the hugest acting career in the world, but always reliable and happy to see him pop up here.
And in Jaws, he's in Jaws too. Yeah.
Yep, thumbs up for Keith Gordon. Also not nominated for a Razzie, thankfully. Okay, who is having the most fun other than Brian De Palma?
Oh, that was my answer.
Okay, I'll ask it again. I'll ask it again.
No,
Okay,
no, that's fine. That's
okay,
fine. I don't need to explain why. You
okay.
actually did a really good job of explaining why he's having the most fun. He wants us to have the most fun.
For all the reservations or whatever, quote unquote, that's why I enjoy the film. It's like a musician you like hitting solos. If there's something about a performance you like, this is one of his great performances, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
Just the craft. Like the
Yeah.
script, we can debate all day long. The characters we can debate all day long, but like the craft behind it, I think is a ton of fun. I gotta go, Dennis Franz.
Yeah.
Such a scumbag.
Yeah.
Such a scumbag.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
eating the scenery. He's not just
Yeah.
chewing it. He's eating and swallowing that scenery.
Is this ahead of its time?
You
Hell
know,
no.
that's it. Yeah, it's not. I don't think we need to say more.
It's just not.
I was gonna say, Greg, I had a hard time answering this category, but you put it well.
What scene would you show to someone to hook them?
My initial answer was going to be the museum scene, but I'm not sure how indicative of the film it actually is. I mean, it doesn't really show you what the film is really like. And the best scenes are the most suspenseful, but they might give a lot away. So I'd probably say the train scene from when Liz runs back down in the station and then through Pete saving her. I think that'd be good without giving too much away. And if you don't like that level of suspense, then I don't think you're going to like the film.
Also, patience.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I think it's a very well done scene. But part of it is, the killer's on the train. The guys who harassed her are on the train. And the cops there, when is the other shoe going to drop? And
Yeah.
being able to sustain that. I'm right there with you. Museum's great, but you might lose somebody's patience with that. I'd also say the elevator, but as somebody who saw that as a teaser, that ruined my expectations.
Yeah, it ruins it.
So no, I would agree with the train. T-shirt quote.
My first answer was, I thought this would be such a great t-shirt quote. It's very bad, and you're talking to an expert on bad. And then just say dress to kill on the t-shirt.
Ooh.
But then I realized if someone sees that on a t-shirt and they're not familiar with the film, they're going to think you're calling the movie bad. So I think I got to go with, there's Dennis Franz quote, I hope you make a better hooker than you do a detective.
We could just do a section on Dennis Franz quote. I have two runners up and then the actual one. So first one is all caps, you have contracted a venereal disease. And then like freaked out faces underneath from the film.
No, it should be the poster behind you.
Yeah.
You've contracted a venereal disease.
Us laughing about it, I think that's the point. I don't think he was like, oh, this is serious. So you should really. So it's like that. That's why I find it because it's so over the top. There's all kinds of ways to get killed in this city if you're looking for it. I like that a lot.
That's a good line.
But my favorite is, look, I know what dirty is, and this is dirty.
That's actually great, just with that
Trust
picture, with the poster. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. There was another line I wanted to call out. It's Liz when she's trying to seduce Dr. Elliot. She says, because of the size of that bulge in your pants, I don't think you're so married. And look, on its own, that line sounds really cheesy, but it's actually a good line of dialogue within the moment of where she's seducing him.
Trust me, this is not the first time we're going to have this conversation, but I like the seduction to get to the next plot point. That could come off like cheesy or ineffective or silly or any way you want to describe it in a poor way. I like that scene because Nancy Allen sells it. Nancy Allen sells it to Michael Caine. Two people doing a good job acting, not two Razzie nominations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they two good actors, they totally sell it.
But she does it, she sells it, but that's also her job. She's a sex worker, so she knows how to do this. So
also,
to her,
like misdirect.
Yeah, sorry. To her, it's just another job.
I like the misdirect of, now you can pick up whenever he gets aroused, he looks in the mirror. Or whenever the Bobby personality is going to start to come out the mirrors there. But after she propositions him, she walks out of the room. She walks out of the room to try and go through his book to try and find this Bobby character. He looks in the mirror and smiles and starts to get undressed. Oh, is he getting undressed to sleep with her? No, he's getting undressed to, and like, I think that's a really cool visual piece of storytelling. What does that smile represent? Because it's like,
I think it goes back to my question of whether Dr. Elliot knew or not.
Are there any Oscars you would give this?
Angie Dickinson. I just don't know if it'd be for supporting or lead actress, but Angie Dickinson, absolutely.
Okay. I'm not joking. I'm not being cheeky. Best score, best cinematography, best direction.
Yeah, can't argue against those.
The score is fantastic. I mean, I know we didn't really talk about it earlier. When it comes to like crew members to shout or whatever, we tend to try and go a little bit off the beaten path for stuff you don't talk about. But like, this is a great looking and sounding movie. And then I guess on that note, who would we like to shout out from the crew?
I want to shout out Michael Stone, who's the camera operator. And I'm guessing he did the Steadicam for the film. I couldn't find out who exactly did, so I'm hoping it's Michael Stone because the Steadicam operation in this film is superb. And his other credits include camera op for Fatal Attraction, Uncle Buck, Sea of Love, State of Grace, the Sean Penn film, Money Train, and he was a second unit camera op on Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor.
Good run. Well, I was trying to go through like, should it be the camera department? Should it be the audio? Like, what? But then I was like, locations. Because I think the subway looks great.
Yeah.
The museum scene, so clutch. Just two names came up. Location coordinator, Edward Crucito, I hope I'm saying that correctly, who also did Big Top Pee-wee and the slasher film The Prowler, which is actually a low-key banger. And then Jeffrey Silver was location manager. Now, their location managing career, kind of meager. They did a movie called Going in Style. They did this film and Amityville 2. But as a producer, they worked on Edge of Tomorrow, the live-action Beauty and the Beast, the live-action Lion King, the live-action Little Mermaid, Tron Legacy, and the upcoming Tron Ares.
Oh, so they're a Disney producer. I love it.
Pretty good. Pretty good. So I wonder if they have any
those
war
aren't bad
stories.
credits.
But the good news is, I would say this is his most problematic movie. I think any other Brian De Palma conversation we're going to have is going to be smooth.
Okay, good. So it's all uphill from here is what you're saying.
I mean, not to say there's not some crazy stuff. Yeah, this is the one that I wouldn't just show this to anybody, to be honest. I mean, if you're a film fan, and if you like kind of like crazy virtuoso filmmaking, sure, but I wouldn't just crack this out for anybody.
Yeah, you'd have to give it a caveat for sure.
I'm glad we took the journey, and thank you for
suggesting.
I am too.
I had never seen it. I'm glad I watched it, and I think it was good to discuss it. And now I have to go watch Body Double.
Oh my gosh. Okay, tune in next week's episode as we cover Brian De Palma's
we're gonna turn this into a De Palma podcast. I could feel it.
That, the Razzie Redemption, and then any other problematic stuff we get our hands on.
I think I definitely want to do the Razzie Redemption, so we'll talk more about that.
We'll have to look at some of the other films that were up for that inaugural one.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Real Demers. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe by leaving a like, subscribe, or review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. You can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to reach out and send us a comment, you can email us at realdemers@gmail.com. Our music is by Adolfo Delanoy. You can check him out at Instagram at Adolfo Delanoy. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.